If you remember when the Toa finally got knees, surfing Lee Khan, and losing those bloody discs, then you were there when Bionicle ruled the world. In my first video, we took a look at the original wave of Bionicle, which encompassed the Toa Metru and Nuva lines. And this time around, we'll be continuing the journey with the Metru Nui wave from 2004 and 5. We'll be taking a look at the sets, the story, and everything else that made this era of Bionicle special. But first, let's set the scene. The original Bionicle line was a massive success. Not only did it help save LEGO from bankruptcy, it became the company's first homegrown multimedia franchise. Bionicle expanded beyond just the toys with games, books, comics, toothbrushes, shoes, and whatever the hell this is. LEGO would in turn build on this success by expanding both the lore and toy lines, introducing iconic villains like the Bisorak and the Rakshi, and giving the Toa themselves a soft refresh with the Nuva forms. This original Bionicle arc concluded at the end of 2003 with its first feature-length movie, which teased a much larger world and limitless possibilities.
The city of the Great Spirit, my island home, refound.
And so, as we went into 2004, school playgrounds all around the world were filled with speculation over what will happen next. Surely the Toa Nuva would explore this new city and get new forms, right? After all, we'd just been introduced to Taka Nuva, him and the other Toa can have so many adventures in this new location, right?
In the city of Metru Nui, you can discover how 6 new heroes confront the danger and protect the inhabitants from a mysterious force. They are the Toa Metru, extremely adept, powerful, equipped, and ready for any challenge. They know their duty, but can they stop this new faceless opponent? Bionicle, a mystery to be revealed. Each set sold separately.
That's right, the Metru Nui storyline was a prequel set 1,000 years before the Toa Metru. And for me, this was a hard pill to swallow, but only because I was so invested into the story and lore of the previous sets. I'd spent 3 years with the original Toa, which when you're 10 is like a third of your life. But a lot of my friends and the other kids I knew didn't really care. Maybe it's because they weren't as invested into the lore or just weren't as precious about it. After all, these were new Bionicles and they looked cool as f***. We had Vakama, the Tower of Fire, Nokama, the Tower of Water, Omiwa, the Tower of Stone, Wenuva, the Tower of Earth, Matal, the Tower of Air, and Nuju, the Tower of Ice. Just like their predecessors, the Toa Metru came in canisters packed with mini CDs.
This is Vakama, protector of Toa Metru. The Toa must find 6 incredibly powerful great discs if they wish to save their home.
Ask your parents to buy them.
But the only Matoran who know where the discs can be found have disappeared as well.
Ask your parents to buy them too. So yes, this time around the CDs had more of a narrative focus, with each Toa playing a basic version of L.A. Noire to find the clues and progress the story. What's interesting is that in the US, the canisters no longer came with CDs, instead you get a web code to download the app. Okay, but enough about the supplementary material, what about the actual sets? The Toa Metru retained the DNA and general look of their predecessors while introducing a completely new design. Compared to the Toa Nuva, which were made up of 36 pieces, the Toa Metru were comprised of 38 pieces. This meant that the new Toa were noticeably bigger in size, and they had that natural broad-shouldered look without needing to use artificial enhancements. The new sets also addressed one of the biggest issues from the original line, articulation. For example, let's compare these two legs. The original was made up of 2 pieces and only had 1 point of articulation. Meanwhile, the new leg was made up of 5 pieces and had 3 points of articulation. The same applied to the arms and neck, which meant the Toa no longer had to do the Batman to look around. The headpiece was also redesigned so you could actually remove the transparent part instead of having it be stuck in there until the end of time. And of course, all this articulation meant endless possibilities for new positions. From cool martial arts moves to, oh my god, Just like the previous generation, the Toa Metru all had unique weapons, but this new design allowed for the weapons to be stored on their back instead of getting lost or being eaten by your dog. The only downside to the larger design was that you had to remove their arms to fit them into the canister. In addition to all that, the big play gimmick this time around was the disc thrower, which ironically dates all the way back to the Slicers. And of course you could buy supplementary disc bags because we would all lose them immediately. Now launching alongside the Toa, we also had a new generation of Matoran. And whilst they still reused the same old mask, they did have a major body upgrade. Matoran more like McSwollen.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
And of course, as we learned from the previous generations, the Toa needed counterpart villains, and this time around we got the 6 Vahki.
In Metru Nui, the Vahki are spreading throughout the city, claiming to enforce the law. But instead, Matoran are disappearing. These new Vahki are highly advanced, equipped with powerful tools, and the awesome ability to transform. Their actions are suspicious, but their aim is clear. Bionicle, you must surrender or run. Each set sold separately.
The Toa, Matoran and Vahki were released in the first half of 2004, adhering to Bionicle's staggered release strategy. The second half saw the release of 3 bigger villain sets, also with discs, and just like the Nuva line, we also had a 7th Toa, Lee Khan. Only this time, Toa Lee Khan was actually the last of the old Toa who was responsible for creating the stones which turned the 6 Matorans into Toa Metru. Just like the previous generation, LEGO continued to build Bionicle as a multimedia franchise, which meant the Metru Nui line would be accompanied by books, comics, and of course a movie. Bionicle 2, The Legends of Metru Nui was produced by the same team as The Mask of Light, however this movie took a different approach. Whilst the first film focused on the ending of the Toa Nuva arc, this movie had more of an omnibus structure, focusing on the entire story of the Toa Metru. Also, this movie actually had the 6 Toa as the main characters, unlike the original which focused on the 2 Happy Meal toys with all the cool sets acting as support characters. The movie starts with Toa Lee Khan being hunted by a great evil, spoilers, it's Makuta. Before his capture by the more expensive villain sets, he manages to give 6 Matorans stones containing fractions of his power. This turns them into the Toa Metru. Also, this movie continues the first film's tradition of making some of the Toa look nothing like the sets, and once again the blue one is the worst offender. And also the green one is Irish.
Thanks for dream sharing, Vakama.
Plus the red one is riddled of anxiety.
I saw it. Metru Nui was destroyed.
The Toa go on a bunch of adventures to recover the Discs of Power. However, they end up being banished by the city's leader, Taraga Duma. Spoilers, it's Makuta. Turns out his plan is to put all the Matorans in the city into capsules for some reason. Anyway, the Toa escape the city using Futurama tubes and split into 2 teams. The first trio learn to ride these rhino kangaroos, while the others learn some force powers in a cave.
That's it. You history builder!
Some other stuff happens, and then we get to the final climactic battle against Makuta, who looks just like he did in the first movie, only with wings. Luckily, there's no lacrosse in this one, but they're still desperately trying to avoid violence at all costs, which resulted in Makuta just trying to grab at things with this red arm shooting out of his chest. He also ends up Disney villaining himself when he grabs the big pillar and accidentally crushes himself with it. The Toa then glue Makuta to the side of a cliff, grab some Matoran canisters, and transport them all the way through this tunnel, which is what, the ear canal, to the island of Metru Nui. And then we get this Sixth Sense level ending twist where we realize that the Toa Metru are actually the Taraga all along, and Jala gets Lee Khan's mask. Oh my god! So that's it for the movie, but before we move on to next year's sets, it's worth mentioning the video games. The original line saw several tie-in games, most notable being the 2003 game which sort of retold the key beats from that arc. Now, its developers, Argonaut Games, did start working on a sequel titled Bionicle: The City of Legends. However, the game was cancelled when Argonaut entered liquidation in autumn of 2004. Luckily, this early tech demo did leak online, and just playing it you could already tell this game would have controlled much better than its predecessor. There was a proper free camera this time, and the Toa weren't so shy about throwing hands. Plus, the beam attacks from the first game are now replaced with discs. The only game that was completed and released for this generation would be the Maze of Shadows for the Game Boy Advance, and this one feels like some sort of fever dream. It starts after the movie with the Toa Metru having arrived on Metru Nui, but then they decide to go back to Metru Nui. However, an evil plant shows up and poisons Nokama, then unpoisons her, but only temporarily. And to get the full antidote, the Toa have to go on a quest to find some petrodermis for the plant.
I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
As for the game itself, it's a pretty standard turn-based RPG. And I like how Vakama can become invisible, but you can still see a shadow. Alright, let's move on to 2005, and this is where things get weird. As I mentioned before, the first iteration of Bionicle's story lasted for 3 years. That's 3 years spent on Metru Nui, and LEGO were able to do that by giving the Toa a mid-cycle refresh. So they decided to do the same with this generation, but there was a problem. They had already wrapped the story up. The way the movie ended didn't leave any room for more stories. We saw the Toa Metru leave the city and become the Turaga. Sure, you could have more adventures in the middle of the story, but the Toa would still be the same. So surely there's no way of getting around it. Well, get ready for some plot point gymnastics from the Bionicle story team. You see, it turns out the Toa had to make at least 2 journeys between Metru and Metru Nui to pick up and drop off all the pods. You know, because they were carrying all of them by hand. And when they came back to get more Matoran pods, the city had been overrun by this demon guy and the dinosaur-looking lady with dreads. And the two of them had unleashed an army of bugs known as the Visorak, each sold separately. The Visorak then ambushed the Toa and trapped them inside these cocoons where the Toa Metru mutate and become the Toa Hordika, thereby allowing LEGO to have their 2005 line still be set in Metru Nui.
In Metru Nui, caught in the Visorak web, change has begun. Behold, Toa Hordika. Reshaped with new body armor, each Toa must control a new elemental tool and master the Ratuka spinner. Catch the power of the Toa Hordika. Bionicle. Each set sold separately.
Now, convoluted story aside, how did the Hordika compare to the Metru? Were they basically the same sets with new masks, weapons and armor, just like the Toa Nuva were? Well, no, the Hordika were made up of about 70% different parts when compared to the Toa Metru. Unfortunately, the Hordika did lose some of their arm movement mechanisms and some of the upper body articulation in favor of this elbow mechanism. The discs were also replaced with these spinner launchers, and the face piece had been replaced with a few Technic pieces under the mask. That, plus their reptilian look, definitely made the Hordika an acquired taste. Naturally, the Visorak were the counterpart enemies for this line, and of course they also came with the spinners.
In Metru Nui, the power of the Visorak is almost complete. Welcome to the nest. Spider-like with sharp senses, unique armored shells, and powerful venom pinchers. Their back holds the feared Ratuka spinner. Catch the power of the Visorak. Bionicle. Each set sold separately.
This line also had the Queen and her Simp as the 2 bigger sets, plus 2 special edition Ancient Toas, and of course, who can forget Katungu?
It's Katungu!
Once again, LEGO shot themselves in the foot by putting all the Matorans into pods, so instead they had to invent the Rahaga, which looked like the Rakshi's less athletic cousin. In addition to all that, this was also the first line to have playsets.
At the gates of Metru Nui, the evil Visorak army is about to attack the Toa stronghold. Quick, prepare your defense. Load your arms, set the traps, and get ready for the spiders. The Visorak attack, but the Toa fight back. It's in your hands who will lose and who will win the Battle of Metru Nui. A world premiere. Playsets from Bionicle.
The Hordika line also had its fair share of books and comics. There were no video games, but you did get a few web animations and the final movie in the original trilogy. Bionicle 3, The Web of Shadows, which was a prequel to the first movie and a midquel to the second. The movie does as best a job it can in trying to explain the convoluted placement of this wave's story, but I'll be honest, I never really cared for this one because it felt super inconsequential. The entire story is told between these two shots in the second film. Yes, I guess it shows you how Makuta was unglued from the cliff, but that doesn't really matter. The thing that stood out most about this movie to me was how weirdly seductive they made the evil queen sound.
Will all 6 be enough to please you? This is but the first of many lessons I can teach you. Even now, their broken bodies are being brought to me, so I may drain them of their elemental powers.
This movie also had the balls to end with a flash forward of Vokama, Takanuva, and Jala just before they set off to Metru Nui.
Now it's time for you to make new legends.
Well, why didn't you show us that? That was exactly what we wanted to see. Instead, we got this prequel and midquel. I swear to God, this is a bigger blue ball moment than the Patriot tease at the end of MGS2.
What the hell?
And so, there we have it, the Metru Nui era of Bionicle. While personally, I feel the story may not have captured the same sense of wonder as the original Metru Nui saga, the sets themselves represented a crucial step forward for the line. The Toa Metru introduced greater articulation, refined molds, and new design features that elevated the build quality and playability. And even though the Toa Hordika were a bit more divisive in their aesthetic, they did at least demonstrate a commitment from LEGO to innovate rather than simply rehash the previous designs. Ultimately, the 2004 and 5 waves were bold evolutions for the series, which helped solidify its legacy during a time when Bionicle ruled the world. I hope you enjoyed this video. A huge thanks to my friends Adam and Tom for providing the figures, building them with me, and even helping with the B-roll.
Help me! I'm stuck! I've fallen!
If you'd like to see a third part of the series where I cover the Toa Hordika and the Paraka lines, then leave a comment below. Also, let me know about your memories of the Metru Nui series. Which was your favorite Toa, favorite set, and why does Toa Lee Khan fly on an ironing board? As always, thanks for watching. Please consider supporting me on Patreon, and a big thanks to my existing patrons. If you've enjoyed this video, then please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Hello, my name is Vokama. I used to smelt stuff, but now I'm a humble... Okay, I've gone now. Who's next? Ah! It's me, Vokama! Ah! Fuck!
Toa, it's me, Lee Khan! Oh!
Did you guys see something?
What a stupid looking set!